boundaries. People are just more and more desensitized to just normal sex, it's true. And to the point where just two adults having sex isn't really gonna get people off. You gotta do double penetrations, you gotta do all these things. And now, if you go to any porn site, you're pretty instantly gonna get a pop-up of a girl who looks about 12 with braces taking a dick half her size. What they're trying to do is sell that like pedophilic fantasy. And it's very common. Like honestly, if you're a girl and you're 18 or 19 or 20 and you look underage, like you are gonna get bucked. Like, fuck. They just want the most extreme things they can think of. I was on this set once in Florida. Florida is known for this like thriving amateur industry. Like so many of these very young looking 18-year-old girls are coming from Florida. And I grew up in Florida, and it's because that culture is backwards as fuck probably. That's what I can say. I get a last minute booking for a scene. No one really told me anything. I didn't even know who I was working with, and I didn't usually care when it came to girls because they just are less problematic than guys for me. Let's leave it there. And when I get there, you know, we're getting makeup and stuff. The girls get there and they're literally like, they weren't just 18. They were 18 in December. They had both just turned 18 within the past couple weeks. Like literally these girls should have been in high school at this time. Like they literally should have been sitting in a desk. Like this wasn't the weekend. This was like a Monday. Why weren't you fucking in your senior year of high school? Like what is going on? And like, no, oh, we dropped out. We dropped out of high school to do porn. You're not, I don't care who you are or where you're from, like, you're not ready to do something like porn when you're a senior in high school. So, it wasn't just like that, you know, that was what it was. Okay, you come from a bad background, you don't, you know, whatever. They're struggling not to cry constantly this day, is they dress them up in little girl clothes from like Target. Like you know how you go to Target, you go to clothes, and there's just like women and juniors and little girls. The clothes were from there. They were from the little girl section. They were wearing little flat loafers like Catholic schoolgirls, and these like tiny little shirts and skirts that they hiked up, like, and those fluffy socks. And the girls already look fucking 12. And they put basic makeup on them and then dressed them up this way. So like when I looked at them, I'm just like they literally wanted me to work with these girls sexually, and like they look like children. They both were so tiny that if they were walking in like an elementary school line in front of me, like I would assume they're 6th graders. And it's not like, you know, I really wanted to just be like, I can't do this. But again, you know, word travels like super duper fast, and they were 18, and you know, I was like, I tried to make the best of it. And I was like, so you just turned 18, like, how are you here? And she's like, oh, I used to go to this house party when I was like, you know, 16, 17, and I met this guy, he's an agent. He told me I'd be this great big porn star and I would be so successful, and I really believed him, and he's sort of been just kind of like preparing me, so as soon as I turned 18, like, here I am. Like, literally some piece of shit, like, 20-something-year-old glorified pimp is going to house parties with underage girls and convincing them to do porn. So, it's, and aside from that, you know, these people are probably gonna get involved in bad things to begin with, but the producers just keep churning it out. They don't give a fuck, you know? They make millions of dollars a year off of shooting porn, and they feel the need to shoot elementary school girls, basically. So, you know, I just don't even want to be associated with shit like that.
I was a porn actress for almost 2 years, and I experienced major abuse, drug addiction, prostitution, abuse by pornographers, abuse by club owners, all kinds of things that I went through, and I had very severe damages that literally took me 8 years to recover. I had the last thing I want to do, people, is talk about porn. But you know what, I went back to the industry and saw that there was a lot of other people like me. I counsel these women, I spend time with them, and they end up just pouring their hearts out and sharing with me the same exact things I went through. Some of the things that I have learned working with them is that they suffer from a wide range of mental illnesses. They have severe depression, nightmares, flashbacks, unable to communicate normally. When I got out of the industry, I couldn't even look at anyone in the eyes. I wore sunglasses everywhere, and I kept my head down. I couldn't function normally. A lot of them defend this industry just like I did, because basically what you can't beat, you defend. It is very hard to get out of this industry and be normal and have a normal job. Women suffer from sexually transmitted diseases. That's a huge problem down there. I really don't think the state understands the problem. But even their own clinics admit that approximately 66% are herpes carriers. Other porn actresses blatantly admit that, more like 90% have STDs and herpes, HPV, which leads to cervical cancer. I know I have dealt with early cervical cancer and had to have a cone biopsy, which is a removal of part of my cervix. Other women I work with have actually had their entire cervixes removed and can no longer have children. And prostitution is very prevalent. In fact, they're also blatant. They have websites right online that are called porn star escorts, and they make about $1,000 to $1,500 an hour, and they actually prefer to do that instead of work on a set for 8 hours where you're being degraded and abused and sometimes beat up and slapped and spit upon and called all kinds of degrading names, where they can make the $1,500 in an hour. So yes, porn stars are prostitutes too, and I'm just going to be bold and say that. And they all admit it. It's not hard to find all this information online. Anyone can go find it. So obviously that leads to all kinds of crimes and rapes. I've had there actually, a lot of the girls complain that the pornographers or porn producers set them up for scenes, and then it turns out to be what you call privates, where they show up and there's no cameras. And a lot of the girls are like, wait a minute, I didn't sign up for this. And they're like, no, you signed a 1-year contract with us, and you're going to do what I say. Otherwise, I'm going to send cease and desist papers out to the other agency. You can't work. I've had women tell me they've had scissors inserted inside them on the set. Okay, and this is very true. I have a lot of this information on my website. These women have been bold to stand with me today to tell the truth. No one can talk about this because they're scared. You think it's not easy for someone, they're frightened that someone's going to hurt them, they're being threatened all the time. And it's only because I had a very strong recovery and a very supportive family that I can even sit up here and tell you the truth about what's going on. There's also major drug and alcohol abuse. I was addicted to alcohol and meth. We used meth, we used cocaine, ecstasy on the set. Heroin's the big thing now. Also prescription drugs. I know the name of the doctor in the valley, in the San Fernando Valley, that you can go to him anytime you want and he'll give you prescription drugs. The doctors are making huge money off these people, obviously. Many of them have problems with lack of education and job skills. People always say, why can't they get out? I'm like, most of them, a lot of them, I won't say most, a lot of them did not graduate high school or very young, 18, 19-year-old girls who are promised glamour, fame, and fortune. Especially with the internet, they're being lured in by pornographers and porn producers. We'll make you famous, you'll be rich, you only have to do this. When they get there, you're going to do this instead.
gets your love? Gets your love? When I'm down, who gets your love?
Wrote that virtually every page of the Kinsey report touches on the legal code. He told the legal profession that no bar association, law school journal, or lawyers' committee can consider sex laws without the Kinsey study. According to Westlaw, the most widely used legal database, between the years 1982 to 2000, there were approximately 650 citations to Alfred Kinsey.
The model penal code that was adopted just after 1955 was based on Kinsey's research.
This is a flow chart I put together to describe how the Kinsey research gutted American laws. Through the American Law Institute, ALI, the American Law Institute Model Penal Code, 1955. That was where protections were then removed for women and children from American law system. The U.S. justice system from 1948 to today, that's what this is about.
After publishing his reports, Kinsey traveled the country, giving lectures at universities and testifying before lawmakers. He was received as the leading scientific expert in the world on human sexuality. In particular, he discussed laws concerning sex offenders and the education of children.
Of children, he said 100% of are orgasmic from birth. Therefore, children can benefit from sex with adults and even incest, which is illegal, so we need to lower the age of consent. He was working toward making everything legal, but that's all right. Children need early explicit school sex education since they're sexual from birth, which was illegal at the time, now it's everywhere. They need masturbation and hetero and homosexual acts to be taught to them, which was illegal, and now it's being taught. And about parole, Kinsey said that sex offenders rarely repeat sex crimes, therefore all sex offenders should be paroled, which is exactly what started to take place.
Part of Kinsey's defense of pedophiles was that children were not really harmed by sexual contact with adults. Therefore, it made no sense to incarcerate pedophiles for lengthy prison terms.
1950, Rockefeller funded the American Law Institute Model Penal Code. 1952, a Harvard Law Review called for a code to change our sex laws in accordance with what Kinsey had objectively found. And then in 1955, the code was created and sent out to all legislators in the country via these important people, judge, lawyers, sociologists, lawyers, and so forth. And from there, that went, the ALI model, the sex offenses section, sent to states all over the country, adopted all or in part beginning in 1956 here and moving on to Illinois, to Minnesota and so forth, and all other states of the Union.
As Dr. Reisman noted, the Model Penal Code was financed by the Rockefeller Foundation. Get uncomfortable during the interview.
Did he make it clear in the report that the conclusions on the sexual capacity of 317 children were based solely on the evidence of one sexual criminal?
No, he suggested that it may have been from 3 or 4. I don't think that is a particularly important difference. Kinsey...
But isn't that conspicuously misleading?
I think he was misleading. I think that he...
I'm sorry, you don't think he was misleading? Forgive me?
Yes, I think he was misleading, but I don't think it was a misleading of any consequence. He was concerned about his maintaining confidentiality. Throughout his volumes, he tended to avoid drawing attention to any particular individuals.
It's not significant that the conclusions of a study on the sexual responses of children come solely from a man who really has who's a deviant? Doesn't he have a skewed perception of child sexuality?
Well, that was just one type of evidence.
Next, the journalist asks why it took so long to discover that the information came from a single pedophile, rather than multiple pedophiles, as Kinsey had reported. Bancroft's only answer is to say that he worked it out once he became the Kinsey Institute director.
Why did it take so long to set the record straight?
When I got to the Kinsey Institute and these accusations were continuing, some people were expressing, some otherwise reasonable people were beginning to worry about these accusations and saying, well, how is it that if he's got information from 3 or 4 men, he can standardize it in such a way that it goes into a table, unless somehow or other he's trained these men to make these observations. People were beginning to express that concern, therefore I decided to look more closely at the source of information, and that's when I realized that actually, as far as those tables were concerned, the information all came from this one man who had been collecting this information in an extraordinarily methodical way throughout his life since about 1917.
And you knew of this for how long? That it was that Kinsey was misleading in this?
I worked out that there was one man involved soon after I came to the Kinsey Institute, and shortly after that we issued a press statement from Indiana University making this point clear.
So, I'm sorry.
That was at the beginning of September.
What the criticism is also, and it's significant, is that Alfred Kinsey was guilty of academic dishonesty, and if the Institute if the Institute would have been more forthright, the people from the political and religious right wouldn't have the kind of ammunition that they now have to try to not only discredit Kinsey, but the teaching of sex education in schools.
There is no reason to say that Kinsey has been dishonest. He probably had a good reason for obscuring whether it was 1 or 3 men. That is a minor detail.
The minor detail of Kinsey's data may have had a major impact on America's children, especially when one considers that now, decades later, 1 in 4 teenage girls are currently infected with some kind of sexually transmitted disease. And according to the White House Office of National AIDS Policy, in the U.S., it is estimated that 2 young people, aged 13 to 25, are infected with HIV each hour. Each hour. Is this the devastating fruit of Kinsey's sexual revolution? Furthermore, should Americans trust information about child sexuality from child molesters who were raping kids? As Dr. Bancroft has admitted, Kinsey's pedophile data directly impacts sex